Therefore, when a Sri Lankan food company achieves international recognition for food safety, it is doing more than obtaining a certification for that particular entity. It's sending a message to the international marketplace. About the recognition of Sri Lankan organization as well as entire product lines. This is a powerful competitive advantage. This is why today's awareness session is very much important for us. The food safety system certification frameworks, which provide businesses with a structured approach to managing food safety risks and demonstrating that these risks are being systematically controlled. So that, anyway, I will emphasize one point. Certification should not become a boxed exercise. The objective need to be simply to be obtain a certificate and display it in the wall. Is that the case that we are talking about today? The real objective, in fact, to develop a culture of food safety throughout the organization. It's a passion of entities. The culture begins with the organizational leadership. The network of procurement, production, the quality assurance, logistics, warehousing, maintenance, HR functions, and all employees need to involve. This is basically a teamwork. It's a team. Food safety is not the responsibility of the quality department alone. No. It's everyone's responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, so I would like to point out one fact here. That's been the apex body of promoting exports in Sri Lanka and providing necessary facilitations. My purview want limit to the international market, to be frank. In a responsible organization and representative of the organization which has the government affiliations. Let's go beyond that. So, when I discussed just now with Control Union, with you, about the new standards and challenges coming in, the mineral contents, for example. Right? So, of course, Export Development Board has a clear background where to request each and every import of raw material who processing these things for exportation purposes need to get the certification, safety certification. But I strongly believe we need to go beyond that. Each and every citizen in this particular country has a due right and respect towards food safety. Because at the end of the day, the valued networks, exporters, farmers, manufacturers, exporters, all affiliations, international organizations, everybody looks into food safety as a globe. Not about the international, also domestic. So, under such circumstances, proactive measures are very important than reactive measures. So, now it has gone beyond that. Reactions are no more valid for us. We need to take proactive decisions as country. So, as well aware, the controlling authority for food safety industry in Sri Lanka is Ministry of Health. Right. So, need to be redefined, need to be marketable, need to be adjust our frameworks in line with the international arena. That is important. Even EDB's point of view is the same. We need to redefine our objectives. Because world has changed. So, as you are aware, the Codex Committee addressed FAO and WHO which defines the specifications, policy level decisions. We need to ask from ourselves to what extent that we contribute towards our products and our protections. We need to ask from us. It's not big, we are not talking about doctor-patient ratio. No, it's not the case. We are not talking about those factors. Proactive measurements. All Sri Lankan governmental institutions as well as certification bodies, all associations need to get together and need to be focused on this food safety standards. It's very time to come. I hope everybody will agree. Each and every shipment of imports as well as exports need to be certified. It's needed. It's due right off the consumers. Due right off the consumers. Irrespective whether local market or foreign market. Because I have the responsibility of it. Because my organization, the Export Development Board, is controlling body for National Organic Control Agency. We won't divide local consumers and international consumers. It's our due responsibility. Similarly, there are almost, I think, more than 90 governmental entities which unite to present agriculture sectors in Sri Lanka. More than 90 organizations. To my understanding, there are more than 60,000 employees in this particular industry. There are more than 10,000, correct me if I am wrong, 10,000 or beyond field officers for agriculture. I don't think, madam, you have this kind of network in any other. We provide fertilizer, we provide water, we provide free education, direction. Of course, there are problems that I will understand. But still, when I discussed this matter with JICA representatives long ago, around 2 years back, but they told me, Japan, it's not possible for them to think about this kind of network. So, these are the investment we are talking about. These are the investment we are talking about for develop the competitive advantage. I suppose Minister of Health need to have a budget next year for proactive measures rather than reactive measures. 50-50 win-win situation, please. If anybody is here, convey the message. 50-50. Otherwise, it's not rational. We are spending millions and billions of money for medicines. What's the purpose of that? We need to think about the food safety. On the other hand, due to malnutrition, how many millions of people suffer per day? How many thousands of people suffer from cancer? To my understanding, worldwide it's around less than 1%. But it says it's go 5 times risk is there in that case. 5 times risk. So I'm telling you all these facts because the importance of the food safety itself. Food safety is beyond the price competitiveness. So in that case, it creates the value. We should ask from ourselves, are we getting the safer products? Are we getting better quality, sustainability, consistent supply, strong brands, innovative value-added products? Beyond, in 21st century, people consume not goods and services, they consume brands. So it's a branding strategy of the organization. It's not about goods or services that we provide. In fact, it's a collective responsibility. Governmental organizations such as EDB, Ministry of Health, and all, as I mentioned to you, around 90 organizations in this particular network. Regulators, exporters, manufacturers, farmers, laboratories, certification bodies like control union, industry associations, universities, professor, and all development organizations, NGOs, everybody. We need strong collaboration between public and private partnerships. We need greater awareness among all organizations. When it comes to international arena, through our research, when we define SMEs and other, even our large organizations in Sri Lanka, SMEs in the international forums. So we need to empower everybody, irrespective of the scale. Irrespective of the scale. We need capacity buildings. We need technology and testing infrastructure. So I visited recently control union lab that you have, so that it's one of the investments that you're looking at. So that even other institutions and government entities, so everybody need to be in the marketplace. Correct price, marketing approach, good service, all these facts are important. So, when we talk about the futuristic aspect, ladies and gentlemen, the future of Sri Lanka's food industry presents both an opportunity as well as the responsibility. An opportunity because global consumers are increasingly interested about authentic, high quality, differentiated, responsibly produced. The responsibility because when we export a Sri Lankan product, we know that we are not only representing the one organization, we are representing Sri Lanka. So, every product that reaches international supermarkets or marketplace is part of national reputation. The safe, consistent, high quality, strange products from Sri Lanka. When you go international exhibitions, the new tendency is such that individual organizations will not compete most cases. It's basically country pavilions. Representation of country, irrespective of whether it's larger country or smaller country or developed one, it's the same story. Even USA, even Canada, or even Thailand or any other, they represent the country, not individual organizations. So that one of the drawbacks that we have as exporters would be, we thinking about within a framework or limited framework, thinking about your organization only. It will not support in the future. The responsibility is in fact beyond that. So, The one company's success can therefore create opportunities of an entire industry. This is how we build export ecosystems. So as I conclude, I would like to leave you with 3 simple messages. The first one is safe food. Food safety must become embedded in the culture and the operations of every food businesses in this world. It's a fundamental responsibility to consumers and a foundation for sustainable businesses. Second, the strong businesses. International standards and certifications should be viewed not merely as competitive requirements, but as tools to improve business performance, manage risks, strengthen competitiveness, and access new market opportunities. That's number 2. Number 3, the third is global trust. The ultimate objective must be built confidence. Confidence among consumers, confidence among international buyers, and confidence in Sri Lanka as a trusted food producing and exporting nation. If you can achieve that, then the conversation moves beyond certification. Let's go beyond certification. It comes the conventional conversations about market access, investments, innovations, export, employment, national economic growth, so on and so forth. So as you will aware, right now, our export revenue is around 18 billion US dollars. Sri Lanka. So in 2030, our target is 36 billion, comprised with merchandise exports 28 billion. It's doubling the existing level. So somebody might think about it's not feasible, but why don't we think positively, finding out our own negative factors and corrective measures through food safety. 90% of agricultural products in Sri Lanka are being exported as raw materials. So that means basically they are not concerned about the food safety, small businesses. We need export diversification, product basket enhancements. We need to think about logistic factors, everything. This is the reason why, as you well aware, Asian region is the region that we need to think about international market. So there is a reason why EDB involved with developing markets in China, MENA region, MESA region, today the Pakistan market, Indian market, etc. So today we delivered the first shipment of pineapple to the Pakistan market after careful scrutiny from National Palm Country in Sri Lanka and National Palm Country in Pakistan. But it's under good agricultural practices. Here we are talking about much complex things. So what I want to express is that doubling the export figures is, it's not a difficult task, it's low-hanging fruits. Because I live with statistics for the last few years. I know the facts. Things that you do not know that I know. We need to think about transforming raw material supply towards value-added. You need to find new markets with food safety. You need to find out new products. And also, our economy needs to be formalized. Because per day, the EDB gets around 50 complaints from international buyers as well as local buyers. Defaults, right? So basically, the scenario is such that we are rather informal in business structure. So we can't talk about food safety with informal structures. Right? We need to formalize. Entire systems need to be developed. This is the reason why I invite the Ministry of Health and all the government organizations to have 50-50 basis, proactive and reactive basis. So, at last, I would like to tell you, let us shape the future where Sri Lanka food products are not selected merely because they are unique or competitively priced and placed, but because international consumers and buyers know one thing with confidence. That is, they are safe, they are consistent, they are with high quality, and they can be trusted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Janak Paludima, for sharing your valuable insights with us. Having had the broader perspective on the future Sri Lanka's food industry, we now turn our attention to FSSC and the role it plays in translating those expectations into a structured and internationally recognized food safety management system. First, let's have a look at a short video for FSSC.
Imagine a world where all the products we use and the food we eat can be trusted. This is the world that Foundation FSSC envisions by providing certification schemes that safeguard global food safety and social sustainability for the consumer goods industry. With our schemes and digital solutions, we are leading the empowerment of brands to improve the supply chain, aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals and building a future we can all trust. Trust is the cornerstone of our nonprofit foundation. Governed by an independent board of stakeholders and supported by advisory committees, we ensure transparency and integrity in everything we do. Our certification schemes, FSSC 22000 and FSSC 24000, are fully aligned with ISO standards. Through robust auditing by accredited certification bodies and secure digital solutions, we provide assurance worldwide. But trust is just the beginning. Impact is what truly counts. Together with our partners, we drive positive change throughout the global supply chain. With FSSC 22000, we contribute to food security, health and well-being, and directly target the reduction of food loss and waste. FSSC 24000 endorses ethical business practices and accountability to fair labor. Yet, it is our commitment to care that sets us apart. We don't pursue profits, we seek purpose. Our giving back initiatives and strategic partnerships are investments in communities and knowledge sharing, realizing impact on people and the planet. Because ultimately, it's about the challenges consumers face in today's world. While our name may not appear on products, our values are embedded into all stages of the supply chain. Every choice and purchase made carries the assurance of safety, sustainability, and integrity for the benefit of the consumer.
Alright, so to take us through the FSSC framework, its relevance, and what it means to strengthen the food safety system, I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Smita Murthy, FSSC representative for India and Sri Lanka. Ms. Smita, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, and I'd like to first start by thanking everyone for coming here today And a big thank you to Control Union, to Roshan and his team, and also to the eminent panelists that are here today. So I think Janak sir before me has given everything that why you need a food safety system. He's talked about trust, he's talked about credibility, he's talked about competitive advantage and how you need a global market. So today I'm going to kind of focus on what FSSC is. You saw the video just a couple of minutes back. I'm going to talk to you about why FSSC is important, what is it that we do, what we can offer, and how FSSC certification can become a passport to the global market. Okay, so let's get started. What do I? Okay. Alright. Do you have a hand mic so I can talk? Alright, so I'm going to skip this. We talk about all of this. Okay. So I think while they figure out what the technical issue is, I'll start by telling you about FSSC. I think technical issues always have to happen. It's a good omen, I think. So with that, we start. I represent Foundation FSSC. We are a Netherlands-based not-for-profit organization, and our job is to write the standards for food safety. So 15 years ago, that's how we started, by this one standard called FSSC 22000, which is a food safety scheme, food safety certification scheme. And we now, about 3 years back, also started a social sustainability scheme called FSSC 20000. And we also have launched a certification, not a certification, a conformity assessment for smaller companies who cannot do the full certification. So if we can go to the next slide, please. The next one, yeah. So yeah, I already mentioned that yeah, the next one. Go up a slide. Okay, this is what I was already telling you about, that we are this foundation owning these standards. So the thing with our standards is, I don't know how many of you have heard of GFSI, the Global Food Safety Initiative. I'll talk about them too. There are other schemes which also talk about food safety. You might be aware of BRC, GS, you probably have heard of IFS, SQF. So all of these are coming from the same parent, the GFSI. Okay, and the speciality with FSSC, if I can call it a USP, we are the only standard among all the GFSI schemes which is based on ISO. So every standard has a different structure. There are checklists, there are stringent requirements like for in BRCGS. But for our scheme, it is based on ISO. And when I say it's based on ISO, it means that we follow the same high level structure that there is in ISO. For all of you who know ISO 22000 or any ISO scheme for that matter, ISO 9000, 14000, they are all based on risk management. So those principles are embedded in it. So there's no one formula that fits everyone. So it's based on the risk that your organization has, and that is where FSSC comes in. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. We are a small team, globally represented. So just here, we'll go into that. So as FSSC, our mission is very simple. We want to create a better world. We want to make sure that the consumer goods industry is safer, fairer, and more sustainable. And that is what we do through our standards. Okay, so here's what we do in a nutshell. We write the scheme. So scheme development, all the requirements that you get audited against are written by our team. We make sure that the scheme is recognized, so we benchmark it with GFSI, with the Global Food Safety Initiative benchmarking requirements. We make sure that our assurance portals are aligned with the benchmarking requirements, and that there is data that can be checked and assessed by our assessors as well. We provide knowledge. This is an example, the first time FSSC has come into Sri Lanka. So we do knowledge sessions, we provide support to our partners, which are certifying bodies, and also to our certified companies or organizations wanting to go for certification. And then we support the rollout of our schemes. Okay, so when I say scheme, it's not static. So from 2015 to now, we are in the 7th version. We started way back in 2015 with version 1. Now we are at version 7. So every time a new version comes, there are new requirements added. Our job is to help the certifying bodies, the organizations to implement and understand these changes. Okay, like I said, again, maybe a bit of a repetition. We are in version 7 of 22,000, and we have version 1 of 24,000 social sustainability scheme. Both these schemes are recognized by the Consumer Goods Forum, and we'll talk what GFSI means in a bit. And it's of course part of the global accreditation thing, so we are also recognized by the global ACF. Earlier it used to be called IF. Okay, so with 22,000, so what I'm going to do today is we are not going to get a deep dive into every standard because we do not have the time for that. I think Control Union will probably announce a few dates on where we'll do an in-depth dive into version 7, what are the changes, how do you implement it, we'll be talking about that. We'll be doing several webinars we've done with others, plenty of CVs. We'll do some for Sri Lanka also, and I think some dates will probably come to all of you. So with FSSC 22,000, it's one of the world's, or not one of the world, it's the world's biggest food safety standard that there is. This slide needs a little updation, but we are close to about 44,000 certificates as I speak. So globally, there are those many certified, so many certificates and so many organizations worldwide. Our job is to make sure that the scheme is well written, benchmarked, and that companies understand. We also make sure, like I said, like this event, we've done a lot of events last year also across the globe, and for small and medium enterprises, we have about 160 conformity statements as well in the world. So like I said, all FSSC standards are based on ISO. When I say it's based on ISO, that means ISO 22,000 is the absolute foundation of our standard. We build our scheme on top of that. So it starts with the base of ISO 22,000. You have to understand, know those standards, look at their high-level structure. When I say that, I also mean you have to understand how risk is assessed and how it's a risk-based management system. You have to have that as foundation. On top of that, there are, because you're a food industry, there are prerequisite programs, PRPs as we call them. The version 7 that has been launched just this May 2026 has happened because ISO changed PRP standards. So there's a whole new bunch of standards that they have released called ISO 22002 X series. So there is one ISO 22100, which is like a parent standard, and then by food category, whether you're a catering business, whether you're a packaging business, whether you're food manufacturing, there are different prerequisite programs that you need to meet. And because of that change, FSSC has also updated its scheme. So you have to have 22,000, you have to have the PRP based on your category, where you sit in the food supply chain. And on top of that, there are some specific requirements of FSSC. These usually come from the GFSI benchmarking requirements. Or they could be, we have a board of stakeholders who governs us, which are mostly the biggest food companies in the world. So when they look at trends, when they look at new risks that are emerging in the supply chain, those requirements automatically become part of our scheme. Okay. So there was a question before this session started that ISO 22000 is very popular in Asia, in Southeast Asia. There are plenty of 22,000 certificates, I'm sure, in Sri Lanka also. But there is one thing that is different between 22,000 and FSSC 22,000. Like I said, we are built on the ISO platform, but it is a plus, let's say. You're doing a little more than what you do with an ISO 22000 certification. And that plus is what comes from the GFSI benchmarking. So FSSC 22000 has global recognition. ISO, of course, is also a global standard, but it is not GFSI recognized. Okay, you cannot go onto a website and look for your company's name and when was it certified for ISO 22000, for example. But with FSSC you can do. There's a public register on our website where you can go and look for the company name, look for it by country, and you'll know if you're certified, you have a genuine certificate, your name appears on the public register. That's how buyers and suppliers find trust. And I think Janak sir talked a lot about trust, so that's where it also comes in. So having said that, I mean, I've talked this already, but again, it's GFSI recognized and therefore globally accepted. For those of you who do not know what GFSI is, I'll come to it in a minute. As a scheme owner, as somebody who writes the standards, it's our responsibility also to make sure that the auditors or the certifying body that comes to audit FSSC, they understand the requirements, they understand the scheme interpretations. So we have a robust integrity program where we keep an oversight on the auditors, on the certifying bodies, so the audit that you get meets the requirements that are laid out by FSSC. Okay? Okay, so for those of you who don't know what Global Food Safety Initiative or GFSI is, it comes from the Consumer Goods Forum. So all the biggest food companies or the consumer product companies are part of the Consumer Goods Forum. In one of the verticals, it's food companies. So the biggest food companies in the world that you can think of, Kraft, Danone, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle, all of them are part of the GFSI. So it's an organization that has brought together all the food manufacturers, the food safety experts, to kind of come together and say, they don't write the standard, but they say these are minimum requirements. Anybody writing a standard, anybody wanting to get certified to a GFSI standard needs to meet these minimum requirements. So BRC, IFS, SQF, FSSC, all of them are benchmarked against these common requirements, and that is why GFSI is important. This is also the main differentiator between ISO 22000 and FSSC 22000. FSSC 22000 has this recognition, which ISO is not GFSI benchmark. Okay. The next scheme that we have launched 3 years back was FSSC 24000. Like I said, our aim as a not-for-profit foundation is to create a better world. So food safety is something we take care of with 22,000, but there's also dignity of the workers, of responsible business, ethical business practices. That's what we try and address with FSSC 24000. The name FSSC is there, so please, one caveat, it doesn't mean it's only for food industries. This is applicable across different sectors, also food. Okay, so yeah, the main reason is, I think for most of you younger people here, you live your life on the internet, social media, it's part of your life. And bad social practices or, stories of employees being treated badly and, no safety and accidents happening and not being paid on time are not nice things to have. And to make sure that those factors are mitigated, that's where companies move in to look at social certification. And this is one of the social standards that we have launched. Okay, so again, I said all our standards are based on ISO. Same with 24,000. Of course, in 24,000, there is no ISO standard for social management. And you can just imagine why there is, with 130 countries, different labor practices, different compliance requirements. Nobody has been able to bring everybody together and agree to a set of principles that go into a management system like ISO. But yes, there is something called ILO, which talks about human rights, and that becomes a foundation that we use to write this standard. So at the very base, we have PAS. Like I said, there's 22,000 in ISO 22,000 and 22,000 standard. We have PAS 24,000 here. Now this standard was developed with FSSC developed this with BSI, and they used the ILO human rights principles to develop standards on that. Okay, so at the base we have PAS. Then you can see all the human rights policies that are required, whether it's employment, whether it's child labor, whether it is forced labor, all these principles are then embedded in it. And again, like FSSC 22,000, there are some additional requirements that you need to meet when you become certified. Yeah, so just an overview of what 24,000 would touch upon. It would talk about all these things: occupational health and safety, human rights, child labor, forced labor, overtime and working hours. How can a person kind of bring up their grievances? What are the mechanisms? So all these are part of this standard that we have launched. So it's, like I said, it's for every kind of organization, not just food companies. Any company, like in constructions, in electronics, different industries can kind of be this: woodworking, textiles, apparel. All of them can apply for 24,000. Of course, there are some exclusions, like we do not certify tobacco and tobacco products for nuclear material. Those are excluded, but other than that, pretty much all industries can be part of this scheme. Okay. Again, this has recognitions like GFSI. We have SSCI, which is again part of the Consumer Goods Forum. So it's benchmarked against SSCI standards. It also has EcoVadis recognition. We are on the ITC standards now. So again, a very well recognized standard that we have on this campus. Now, the third program that we have, which is probably of interest to people here, is something called as the development program. So I talked about 22,000, which focuses on food safety. We talked about 24, which talks about working conditions, about labor. We have one now called as development program. This is for small and medium business companies. So small and medium enterprises a lot of time are challenged with capability issues. They probably don't have enough trained people to be able to take the organization to an ISO, to an FSSC 22,000 certification. That is where this program comes. So it's like a mini program for smaller companies who cannot directly go into FSSC 22,000. This is like a small step-by-step approach that they can take. So we call it a stepping stone approach. You start here, you build your systems, train your people, get your capability up, understand what food safety involves, and then you move into full FSSC 22,000 certification. Or you can stay here if you want. So basically it has HACCP elements already built in. Codex HACCP, everybody in food industry understands that. It is already there, built into it. We have taken elements from 22,000 which food companies need to understand. For example, traceability, which Sir was talking about also. And then we have, it's aligned to the way the whole FSSC 22000 standard is. So once you do a development program, you can kind of practice here. This becomes your practicing ground. You learn at FSSC development program stage. If you understand, get the confidence, then you can move up to full certification. Or if your buyers or suppliers are happy with it, you can stay here because it still includes HACCP principles. So your basic food safety is covered here. And again, like 22,000, like we have a public register that I told you, you can go to a website and look for a name of a company. The same thing happens with development program. Companies certified or having a conformity assessment here, their name will appear on a public register for development program. So it's very easy for you to give that confidence to your buyer that yes, I have this, I have done my basic food safety, I have a HACCP plan embedded in my development program, I have looked at the risk, and so, you know, the buyer has more trust in what he's getting into. So again, for development program, everything that you need to do this development program is already on our website. We have formulated it as a self-assessment checklist. You can go download those checklists, do your own audit, see where you stand as a company, and then, you know, if you feel confident enough, you can get in touch with one of the certifying bodies like Control Union or SGS or any number of CPs that are there here, and call them in, they come in, do an audit. This is a very short audit because it's not a full FSSC 22,000 audit. It's a small audit, depending on your size. It can be as short as a one-day audit. They come in, they look at you. If you meet all the requirements, you get a conformity assessment. Okay, so this is an annual thing. Every year they will come and do an assessment. If you want to stay at this level, that's fine. There is one advantage here. There are no fees that are charged to the organization getting certified. Of course, there's a license fee between the FSSC and the certifying body. But for the organization, this works out way cheaper. And this is what we encourage small and medium enterprises to look at. Okay. I've talked about all the schemes that we write. And there is one more thing that we have. Again, will be of interest to companies that are growing or have multiple sites. This is something we call digital solutions. Okay, yeah. So as a food safety scheme, when people get certified, I said we are close to 45,000 certificates worldwide. Just the sheer number of data that comes in, you know, you have more than 7 million non-conformity findings that get captured within the report. So we have a huge amount of data, and this is what we are talking about as leveraging as digital solutions. Okay, so basically what we want to do with this is make it easy for organizations who have multiple suppliers maybe, or a company with different units, make it easy for them to search their certificates, search their audit information, what is there, what's not there, what's happened to Unit A, what kind of findings did they get. We want to be able to use this data to turn it into insights, so you already can start seeing a trend, know what the risk is, so that the industry can also benefit from this kind of a warning system that will come up with the information that gets thrown. So this is work in progress, but definitely the first part of finding certificates is already done. But the part with providing insights on findings is work in progress, because I think it needs a little bit of audits on security and how you're going to manage data and stuff like that. So that's work in progress we're doing. Yeah. The fourth thing, and I think Janak sir also touched upon capacity building. FSSC is committed to give back what we get from, give back to the society. So capability building is something that we are focusing on. Our idea is to work with manufacturers, with industry associations, to kind of upgrade understanding on food safety, and to be able to train a manpower to be able to take this further. So that is what we call capacity building. We also associate with UNIDO, and we've been working with some small African countries, and also like places like Ethiopia, where we are helping local self-help groups to upgrade their food safety. They export a lot of moringa, for example. So we are helping them to think about food safety principles when they are even doing something like powdered moringa. So this is our way of doing that. Capacity building is something that we are starting. We are going to put a lot more focus on this going forward. So when we talk about creating a better world and capacity building and stuff like that, we did a little bit of a survey last year in 2025. And we had about 600 odd companies participating in the survey. For those of you who know FSSC, in version 6 we introduced some concept called as the food loss and waste. I don't know how many of you here are certified to FSSC already, but our version 6, for those of you who are certified, has a clause on the companies having to start thinking about the food loss and waste within the supply chain and also within what's happening before it reaches retail. That was the scope that was told. You have to find out where you are losing things. It's only not about efficiency, it's about meeting the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and reducing food loss and waste. And through our survey, we found that people who are certified to FSSC who have to think about food loss and waste because it's part of a requirement. You've already start seeing 9% reduction in food loss and waste in those companies. So this is just one of the benefits that comes from certification. Like I said, we have surveyed people, and 96% of them have said that when you get certified to a standard like FSSC, which makes you think about risk, it gives you a framework to start thinking about risk. It does reduce food safety issues. So in short, what I have to tell you today, because it's so general and it's such high level thing, I want to just introduce you to FSSC, to the work we do, why it is important to you. And here's a summary of everything that I said, probably distilled in one slide for you to understand. We are globally recognized, comes with GFSI for FSSC 22000, SSCI for our other scheme. It is based on your risk. There is no checklist, there's no prescribed thing that you all have to meet. It's based on your risk, on your organizational needs, what you think is the problem, what you think is important to you, what is your focus. So it is risk-based. We are based on ISO, therefore risk analysis is a foundational thing that you have to do. And of course, because our FSSC scheme, by the very fact that it's GFSI benchmark, by the very fact that we have a board of stakeholders that is drawn from food companies, and because we have food safety professionals on that, it is future ready. So every time people think that there's a new risk that's coming up, I don't know how many of you have heard of cyclospora. Anybody knows the cyclospora outbreak that is happening? Okay, so cyclospora is a new outbreak that I think about 30 states in the US has been struggling with. And this is a parasite. It's not a bacteria, not a fungal infection or anything. It's a parasite. Only known host is the human host. There is no other way. It's no animal to man. It doesn't jump like that. The known host is human. People had worked on this for a long time, and by 1980s, I think most people thought that cyclospora is never going to happen because we know enough about how to control contamination. It contaminates through contaminated fecal water that's used in irrigation is the most common way. And the West thought they had a fix on it, but now in 2026 it's back again with vengeance. And it's not fatal, it's not like COVID with deaths and stuff, but it's a very horrible kind of, they call it explosive diarrhea. So I'm sure being sick with it is not a nice thing to have. But there are these new kind of emerging pathogens, new kind of risks that come up. And as FSSC, we are well positioned to take it into account because we have this knowledge, like we know now cyclospora is coming. So our next version will probably say that when you're doing your risk management, you better, start looking at things that are happening across the world and, strengthen it in some way. So all our FSSC additional requirements that keep getting added onto our scheme. It's exhausting, I know, for a lot of people. Every year or every 2 years we have a new version, and again everybody has to work around it. But this is the only way that risks and trends that are happening get caught, and that's what FSSC does. ISO also does that, but it takes a much longer time span because 130 countries have to come to the table and agree on something. But as a voluntary third-party certification scheme, we can do that faster. Yeah. So future ready and sustainable is something that we do. Yes. So thank you so much. This was an introduction to FSSC. I think they will tell you about in-depth webinars that we will do for version 7, which is our latest version. It has come up, has been published on the 1st of May. The expectation is by the 1st of May 2027, certified organizations move into it and get certified to version 7. So we will be doing webinars on what those changes are, what the organization has to do. We'll also talk about what are the main findings that have come up in version 6, but that is all going to be part of a dedicated webinar for version 7, and I think you'll see a few of them happening in Sri Lanka as well. This is my contact detail. Please, if you have questions on FSSC, I'm responsible for Sri Lanka now, and I really believe that there's a lot of opportunity in this little island. So I'm here to support and help all of you. My email is there. If any of you are already certified and have questions, you can send me a mail. And for version 7, also if you're getting ready for it, of course there'll be some knowledge sessions we'll do around that. But if you have questions that come up on FSSC, you know where to contact me. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mehta, for that comprehensive and informative introduction. And I would like to remind you all to submit your questions through the clientele mobile application, and we will bring relevant questions into the discussion that follows. All right. Food safety does not stand still, and neither can the business that depend on it. As global requirements continue to evolve, staying prepared, competitive, and trust has become essential for Sri Lankan food businesses. With that in focus, our panel discussion this afternoon is titled Preparing Sri Lankan Food Business for Emerging Global Food Safety Requirements. I would like to invite our Commercial Manager, Control Union Sri Lanka, Sunara Wickramarajee, to moderate the panel. And to explore this topic from different perspectives, I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Smita Murthy, FSSC representative for India and Sri Lanka, Mr. Janak Badagana, Director of Export Agriculture Division, Export Development Board of Sri Lanka, Professor KKD.S. Ranavira, Department of Food Science and Technology, University of Sri Javardhanipura, and Mr. Ans Junaid, Sri Lankan agribusiness entrepreneur and export specialist and former chairman of both the Lanka Fruit and Vegetable Producers, Processors and Exporters Association and the National Agribusiness Council. A warm welcome to our distinguished panel. Sunara, over to you.
All right. So, good afternoon to everyone. I think it has been a very fruitful afternoon, especially with the insights of Smita about the FSSC and the standard updates and all, and also the important perspective from our keynote speaker, Mr. Chanak, on safe food, strong business, global trust shaping the future of Sri Lanka's food industry. Building on that, this panel will explore what these food safety expectations actually mean for Sri Lankan businesses, not only in terms of compliance, but also relation to the market access, scientific and technical risks, management responsibility, and long-term competitiveness. We are fortunate to have 4 different perspectives represented on the panel today: FSSC and International Food Safety Systems, Export Development, Food Science, and Industrial Leadership. Our discussion is titled Preparing Sri Lankan Food Businesses for Emerging Global Food Safety Requirements. So let me welcome our esteemed panelists again. It's great to have you all today here. From my right side, Mrs. Smita Murthy, coming from India, representing FSC India and Sri Lanka, and Mr. Janak Padugama, representing the Export Development Board of Sri Lanka, and Professor KKTS Ranavira, representing the Department of Food Science and Technology, University of Sri Lanka. And at the end, Mr. Anis Junaid, who is a very well-known agribusiness entrepreneur and export specialist. So I would like to start with the international perspective, followed with Ms. Smita. On FSSC's perspective, what are the most important changes you are seeing in global food safety expectations, and what should Sri Lankan food businesses be preparing for now?
I think that's a really good question. One thing is about certification and standards, but when you start looking at global trends and what is going to shape the future of food safety, there is one big thing that's there on the horizon, I think, which is talked about much lesser, but that's climate change. And climate change is not going to affect just, the weather and how we feel and rain and El Ninos and stuff like that, but also our food security and our food systems. So I think as a island yourself, and also big on exports, I think that's a huge contributor to the economy of Sri Lanka. Climate change and resilience, and how do you start building systems which are resilient to this climate change. It's going to change everything from nutritional profiles of crops to new emerging pathogens that are coming up. I just gave you an example of cyclospora, but there'll be newer and newer things which we've not thought of before because it was not there. But with climate change, you'll probably have new risks emerging, and I would urge everyone to start putting some mind to what it means. That's the biggest trend that's going to go and shape the future of food safety going forward.
Okay, so among these emerging expectations, so which areas do you think businesses are most likely to underestimate?
This is what is underestimated, and I think it results into like a domino effect on so many things. Stuff like testing, which is already expensive and we don't know, and we now have to start testing for things which we've never tested before. You'll have to start looking at different kinds of mycotoxins perhaps that are coming from new fungal infections that are there post-harvest. So that is something that's greatly going to change the way it does, and I think we are already as exporters are struggling with good testing facilities. We are testing with knowing what we export and when they get rejected. So a fallout of all this is going to be that, and I think a standard like a GFSI standard like FSCC will help you think through that, because it's not prescribing anything to you, but it is forcing you to think from the lens of risk, from the risk that faces your organization. And so I think that is what you'll have to start focusing on risks that are there for your specific product, your line, what you export. So
Okay, great.
that's what I would say.
Right, so the expectations are clearly evolving. The next question is what those expectations mean when Sri Lankan businesses try to compete in the international markets. So, Mr. Chanak, how important are internationally recognized food safety systems and certifications for Sri Lankan businesses which are trying to access and most importantly to retain these global markets?
In fact, when you talk about the food safety factor, not only the developed countries, not only of the USA and other developed countries. Now there's a new tendency of looking at safe food concept itself throughout the world. So that means mainly country like Sri Lanka as an island has unique factors, so which cannot be comparable with any other country. So it may be due to, as she explained, is an island, and also with good agricultural practices through the history itself, and also biodiversity, all these factors. So that these are the points that we can market the international. So whilst on one hand we have improving demand for safe foods, on the other hand we do have capacities but need to be transformed from, as I indicated to you earlier, from primitive raw materials to value addition. Just imagine an opportunity that Sri Lanka has, right? So that organizations, they have to play a global, a very vital role in the international arena. So obviously, this is a very good opportunity. Standards as well as the specification requirements are, in fact, given opportunities for Sri Lankan entrepreneurs to play a vital role, by definition, because we play with niche markets. We are not playing with conventional markets from mass selling. So it's not our focus, to be frank. So this is where we need to invest.
Right.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah, sure.
I think with standards like FSSC, which was your question, that how will I think they can help open the doors, global, open global markets, because there'll be a little more trust in your organization because of these standards. But it'll also create a culture of prevention, accountability that keeps building in our organizations here. So I think that is also a value that will come up.
The food safety culture.
Yes.
Exactly. Right. Thank you. So now we are looked at standards and markets, but food safety ultimately begins with understanding the hazards themselves. But unfortunately, the microorganisms, they don't read these standards. So let us turn to the scientific perspective. Professor Anavira, from a scientific perspective, what emerging food safety risks should Sri Lankan food businesses be paying great attention today?
Well, I think there's a huge list of risks, food safety risks. But I would like to focus on a couple of things. Now the world is willing to increase the food production and also diversify food products like new proteins and also things like nano food. But to Sri Lanka still it's new, but maybe GM foods can come in later. And maybe edible films. There are many novel things, emerging foods. Along with emerging foods, there are lots of emerging risks as well. And also, climate change is a very part of our life now, because we have Ditwa, and now we are heading for El Nino. With this climate change, even microorganisms can modify their way of life, like being into more resistant to antimicrobial antimicrobes, and also with that their behavior also can be changed. That can cause even problems to the food industry, because we have to identify new temperature time conditions, and there are so many things to be modified to cope up with these kind of problems. And that is one end. On the other hand, people also like to go for profit making, like food frauds, because it's a huge problem across the world. So therefore, new risk also can come up with that. The other one is now the mycotoxin, I think, along with problems also, new mycotoxins, or maybe huge amounts of mycotoxins like aflatoxin, octatoxin, and so on. So all these are making challenges for the food industry to cope up with. Likewise, now all these, even new additives can be another set of problems. Whether the human beings are capable of metabolizing these things in our body is a big question mark. So therefore, all these are food safety risks that we have to look into consideration.
Okay. So are the current testing and monitoring these technical capabilities developing quickly enough to respond to these emerging risks?
I think now we are now moving, we are going below the level of tackling the problem. New technologies should come, new techniques should come, new analytical methods should come. It means there are lots of new things to come, so that to cope up with new problems.
Right, thank you.
Just to add to what Sir is saying, I'd like to leave a thought with everyone here. All these are risks that he told, and he also said new methods we need. Have we thought about new packaging? You know, now you see a lot of new, we were talking functional foods. You know, people now want sprays and gels, and there'll be a little thing that you keep on your tongue, and you know, it'll give you some whatever. It'll provide whatever it's supposed to provide in nutrition. But all these new things that are coming up, there are new risks, and there are going to be new test methods, new things that you'll have to start thinking about when these, new ways of delivering food also come up. So it's going to
keep
be
evolving.
Yes.
Right. So far we have discussed international expectations, markers, and science. But even the strongest technical system ultimately depends on what happens inside the organization, particularly the decisions made by the management and the behavior of people. So, Mr. Junaid, having observed the Sri Lankan food and agribusiness sector over several decades, how have expectations around food safety changed, and what has that meant for businesses in practical terms?
Well, we talked a lot about the birth of food safety alone, and FSC is, in fact, the word itself is food safety system. It was started with HACCP long time ago, in the 1995, 96. I think I can remember 50 of us first got trained for HACCP, way back then. From there, it has evolved, but FSC came, BRC, all that, okay, GSFI, all came to ensure that is where the heart of the matter is. So, as your question says, okay, in the place of processing, with all new things now, this Mita is talking about 7, it's another for the processes and all that. It's easily said, but it's another headache, in compliance. So this has to come from a top-down approach in the organization. Otherwise, it will not survive. Another very critical factor is for all the processes and the young people who are here, who is going to be working or is into the food industry. The important things of all this certification is it's an insurance. It's a big insurance against the risk factor of, as Mr. Janak said, getting returned or some claim coming in. It is, all this certification is the biggest insurance. So it's up to the organization from, as I told you, it has to come from the top. It's a top-down approach and not a bottom-up approach. The culture has to operate, just to boil down from the top.
So what do you see as the bigger challenge today, like having the right systems and technology, or getting the management and people fully committed to food safety? Which one do you see as the bigger challenge?
Well, this compliance is, the whole thing is a big challenge. It's easily, she's just saying that number 7 is coming. Yes, number 7 is coming. It's a huge challenge for us, the processors, because compliance is costly. Control union does not do it free, and they also do it free. And also to put the system, this is a system. We are talking about a system. So whole system, we are talking about food. It has to start with the farmers. The farmer is remote, far away from the processing plant. So we need to ensure, the system has to ensure that the primary product, the raw material itself, complies with the system, and then it is transported properly as part of the system, and then it's processed very safely as a safe food product. So all this is easily said, but in compliance, you have to have lot of commitments. Commitments from the top, commitment from within, and commitment at the floor level. So to get that commitment is the responsibility of the owners or from the top.
All right. So I heard this from Mr. Janak as well. Like, we often hear that food safety is everyone's responsibility, and then everyone looks at the quality manager, as you said earlier. So I think organizations should generally move beyond that mindset. So I have one question for the whole panel, like where is Sri Lanka's biggest gap? You have each looked at this from different perspectives already. If you look at the Sri Lankan food businesses collectively, where is the most important gap that needs to be addressed now, immediately? Ms. Mita, would you like to answer?
So to be very honest, I've just started looking at the Sri Lankan market, but I know it's the same across our Southeast Asia. So the biggest gap, I think, and Sir alluded to it a bit, saying that it's a cost. The minute you start thinking of something as a cost, well, that itself is one gap that we need to start addressing and start looking at as an insurance, as an investment. So it's going to happen either ways. I mean, if you want to export globally, if you want to grow your GDP, be economically stronger, you have to do, export the things that you are so good at producing, whether it's coconut or spices, but not having a system to back it up, and the gaps that come from not really being committed to a good system to push your way into the global market. That itself is one challenge, I think, but the biggest challenge across food industries is to have a culture that lives beyond the person who's the QA manager now or whoever, and that leadership commitment, I think, across Southeast Asia, I think that's something that we need to push harder and get it. Yeah.
Anyone would like to?
In fact, when it comes to the biggest challenges that we have in this particular area, so Sri Lanka's point of view, one of the major problems that we have with the farm networks, where Mr. Junaid will address it in such a way. In Sri Lanka, we would have most of the cases farmers, but not entrepreneurs. Because though our literacy is very high, so it has not been, Professor, we have not given particular chance to the ground levels. So that the ground level, they are mainly depends on, I would say, the subsidies or supports given by governmental, non-governmental, as well as organization. So these things are not sustainable at all. Because one of the area that Mr. Junaid will evidence where cluster farming is to a certain extent it's a failure in Sri Lanka. Whereas when it comes to maybe India or that is Asian countries, whereas when it comes to Japan and other countries, so those are in fact sustainable levels in most cases. But to one reason, though we are from Asian culture, rather individualistic rather than corporate, when it comes to the corporate sector especially. So it happens everywhere, where when it's talk about, if Mr. Junaid wants to have a farmer cluster, when they come across with certain MOUs, end of the day, if you are not getting the stuff properly, so farmers will go for prices automatically. So it's a failure on that. On the other hand, say international organizations, when they fund for certain activities and when they give supports from financial and non-financial point of views, so spontaneously when they deliver stuff, then they do audits, yes, they are in line with standards. But when they do ad hoc investigations and audits, it's not so. That's beyond, because those are the complaints that we are getting from certain NGOs as well. This is a very big challenge because it needs to be addressed in such a way. It's basically, as I did not indicate, management problem that need to address.
I think making safe food that can meet all the local and global standards, and also making it sustainable, it's a collective effort. Starting from farmers, going through the different stakeholders in the value chain, and end up with the consumer. The whole chain has to be intact, and which should be supported by other organizations like government, non-government. There are many other things should come into this. And also, there should be a way that we have to have a bird view on it, to see where we have problems, to fix things, so that we can have a bigger picture, intact picture. I think unless we have that approach, I'm sure we won't be able to make it.
You have to add something on that? Or?
Yeah, it's actually the commitment from the state in regard to the value chain, at the start of the value chain. I think involvement of state enterprises, or when I say several, there are many units, ministries, departments involved in, I'm particularly talking about agriculture. I think they too has to get involved in this value chain. Without their commitment, without their respect for this, to produce safe food, to have a system for safe food, a commitment from them, it's very difficult for the entrepreneurs alone. Right now, the entrepreneurs alone are carrying this. And going forward, if we are talking about taking our export to 36 billion, which is not a huge thing, we can do that. And it's really doable. But all these exports have been driven only by private sector, entrepreneurs, To take this forward, especially when we are talking about safe food system, the system itself, I think we need support from the other stakeholders, especially the state.
It has to be a collective effort.
Matter, of course, the matter given by Jira is very correct. For example, an example would be the organic agriculture sector in Sri Lanka. In fact, driven by the private sector. There are around 14,000 to 20,000 farmers available. More than 400 organizations who exports organic agriculture. But the question is, though its controlling mechanism is with EDB, as we have around 90 state organizations, to what extent the linkage and contribution cooperative is available is highly questionable. Because you see, when you talk about niche markets, so you can't talk about niche market without organic foods, right? So, and such circumstances, if the state itself does not have any kind of positive or is clear direction towards this enormous opportunity available, so we can't talk beyond that. So it's not a matter of rupees and cents. Basically, systems and the passion to change, I feel.
All right, thank you. Now I'd like to give a chance to a couple of questions from the audience. You can of course push through your questions to us with the application which was installed during the registration process. And I have questions already here for Ms. Mitawan. There's one asking can we go as integrated certification, both FSSC 20,000 and social standards, FSSC 24,000?
So the answer is yes, and with a caveat. It's very easy to integrate FSSC standards with ISO standards because it's the same structure. But when you talk about, you can definitely do your documentation and everything together for 24 and 22. But 24,000 requires a specific skill set in auditors. So the stumbling block comes with auditors. So the same auditor who does FSSC 22,000 and looks at food, he cannot do social audits. For social audits, there is a specific capability that the auditors need. They need to be APSCA certified. So if you have within your within the CV, if you have auditors who have got APSCA, who also understand food, of course you can do it. But the caveat comes that the auditors for social need to have APSCA certification. So that's the only thing, but in terms of documentation and integrating everything at your end, yeah, you definitely can do it. When the audit happens, there will be a set of other auditors who will probably come for 24,000.
And one more to you as well. I think this was, you were talking about this before, what are the key factors you will introduce to food sector through FSSC 20,000 version 7? If you can.
So version 7, I think I alluded to this, but we didn't do a full thing on version 7. There is a new ISO standard called 22,200 series. So the PRPs in ISO have changed. That is the biggest driver for version 7. So now you will have to incorporate the FSSC, the ISO 22,200 requirements, and whatever type of category you are as a food business, you have to include that. You have to look at those standards and take that into account when you're going for version 7. So that is really the biggest change that comes from there. In version 7, FSSC has actually introduced only one new standard. Everything else is a slight tweak, clarifications that have been given. For example, there's a clarification that if you're when you're doing testing for parameters that affect food safety, if you're sending it to an external lab, obviously it needs to have the ISO 17025. They need to be an accredited lab. But if you're doing it internally in your own lab, also you have to follow those same principles. So your test also should be as accurate, as reliable, validated as you expect the outside lab. Okay. So those are kind of clarifications that have been put. Doesn't mean you have to be certified to 17025, but you have to follow those principles. So that is a kind of clarifications. There are throughout the standard, there are these minor clarifications that have been put. But that one new standard that's been introduced in version 7 is on packaging design. So as I told you, FSSC works with lots of organizations like UNIDO, World Packaging Organization, Australasian Institute of Packaging. And with our commitment to food loss and waste, to kind of work on SDGs, the packaging design has to consider how it can reduce food loss and waste. So how do you design a packaging that can prevent spoilage, for example, extend shelf life, so that also leads to less waste. So that is the only new standard as such, that has only new requirement that has been added. Otherwise everything is like, if you're familiar with version 6, it's all there in version 7, with a few clarifications. Like I said, for the lab, there is, you have to follow principles of 17.05. And then there are some minor clarifications. Another example would be if you're making pet food, then you don't have to, if there's no law in your country which says, you have to declare this on pet food, you don't have to, saying it's hypoallergenic, unallergenic, then you'll have to put some, you'll have to have validated scientific data. So there are small tweaks, more or less across in version 6 and version 7, small changes, but only one new standard. So if that's good news, then there's only one new requirement introduced. But you have a whole set of change that's come from ISO introducing new PRP standards. So that is what you need to really understand. So they've tightened the ISO PRP requirements, which is, according to me, very good. So a lot of FSSC additional requirements have actually gone down because they've already now got included in ISO. For example, VASUP, TASUP, thread, they were not there earlier in the ISO, not well defined, now they are. So that's what the changes are. And we do a full thing on that, but this is top line.
I'm afraid you have to keep on answering to this one more question. Like, can you offer FSSC 24,000 certificate to the buyer who needs social compliant audit like SEDEX, Meta?
SEDEX and SMETA are the market leaders right now in social audits. But I put up a slide saying that FSSC 24,000 is SSCI recognized, ITC standards map, EcoVadis recognized. So yes, it can replace SEDEX or SMETA audits. But remember, these are systems. So you have to have a system for FSSC 24,000, like 22,000. It's a management system. It's not a checklist-driven audit. And we are trying to promote that it's better than coming one point in time and doing a checklist and saying, at this point, sustainability, social sustainability looks okay. But with something like 24,000, it's an ongoing thing because it's a system that you have to develop. But yes, it is recognized. And again, we are trying to work with brands. So my colleague who deals with 24,000, they are now working with Walmart, with Tesco, with I think the fashion brands like Zara, to try and get them to accept it. There are some food companies which accept it, like Nestle does, Metro does. So that is the part of work happening. But with recognitions, it already is recognized.
All right, thank you. We have a couple of questions to Mr. tonight. Like, what are the countries mainly requesting these FSSC certificates in the export market?
Well, today, this is a passport if you want to get into export. Just like going abroad, you need a passport. If you want to export anywhere, especially to European Union, Australia, Germany, USA, you can't do anything without this. This is a prerequisite to get into any market. Unfortunately, you got to have this to enter. Without this, this is they will ask for your price, ask for your everything, and then they will bargain. And after they got hold of your price and everything, they will say, okay, can you fill this form? That form is all about this. So without that, you can't go further. That's it.
Right, thank you. So more questions are coming in, so please send them and we'll make sure that all the questions will be answered through the app itself. With the time concerned, we'll wrap up the Q&A session. Before we close, I would like one final, very practical recommendation from each of you. Let us try to keep this around 30 to 45 seconds max each. The question is, if you could ask a Sri Lankan food business to take just one meaningful action during the next 12 months to strengthen both its food safety performance and its competitiveness, what would that action be? Probably to start with Ms. Mita.
From the scheme owner perspective, I would say that start looking at your risk, and you know your product and your lines the best, you know your risk the best. So once you identify, the other things can probably fall in place, but I mean, keep your eyes open and really look at risks and, don't kind of paint them over. That's really what is needed.
To answer your question, of course, I would like to comment based on the philosophy given by my earlier career at Toyota. Right? Three main things. Number one, always respect for the people. That is very important. Number one concern. Don't ill-treat. Right? We are dealing with the foods. So if Toyota talk about respect for people in such an element, so to a great extent you need to think about it. That's number one. Number two, go to the site and see, go to the operational field and see what's going on. Don't take decisions within your cubicles or frameworks. You can't do it. This is the reason why you cannot indicate the fact. Top-down problem is very important. Number three fact would be, in fact, continuous improvement. So she's talking about X to Z, right? A to Z. So first to 100. So the automatically, because the reason why is that always these things are getting changed. So on such circumstances, continuous improvement and learning organization is a matter of fact for future developments.
I think first to begin with, I would like to say that we should be able to manage with tomorrow's hazards rather than complying with yesterday's standards. And having said so, now as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, university, academia, R&D institutions and food institutions, they are working in isolations. There is no glue so that they can work together. I think you said the meaningful proposal. So if these stakeholders can come together and, for example, set for one annual research program so that the academia and R&D institutions can come up with solutions, tailor-made solutions to the industry, I think that is one way of looking at this problem. To do so, the government has to play the role of matchmaker. Otherwise, no one will initiate this thing. So therefore, we have to work together, provided that the government and underlying ministries at least should come up with their helping hands.
Well, we are talking about safe and wholesome food. This, whether it is for local sales or export sales, even without any certification, organization has to have very strong culture of producing wholesome food. That culture has to be inculcated from, again I say, from top to bottom. That's the only safe net you can have going forward.
I think just to add to what you said, sir, I think there's a line which says culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I guess that is what we need to focus on. Yeah.
Great. I think four very practical messages there. Understanding your gaps, understanding your markets, understanding your risks, and making sure management and people take the ownership. The gap, the market, the risk, and the ownership. I think that gives us an excellent note on which to conclude. Food safety today is much more than compliance. It connects science, management systems, people, markets, business resilience, and ultimately the trust that customers and consumers place in us. We also heard certification alone is not the destination. The real value comes when food safety becomes part of how an organization thinks, makes decisions, and operates every day. My sincere thanks to Ms. Mita, Mr. Janak, Professor Ranavira, and Mr. Junaid for sharing their perspectives and experience, and thank you to everyone who joined the conversation as well. So let us continue moving the food safety forward. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you, Sunara, for moderating such an engaging discussion. I would like to kindly request our panelists to remain on stage as we have arranged a small token of appreciation for you. And I would like to invite our Managing Director, Controlling Sri Lanka, Roshan Ranavika, to present these tokens. All right, my sincere thanks to all our panelists for sharing your valuable insights and perspectives. And please continue to submit your questions, and we will collect your questions and provide answers through the mobile application. All right, so we have arranged a couple of videos for you, and that's about Control Union, and let's have a look.
Science is the foundation of trust. At Control Union Sri Lanka, that science comes together in our newly established laboratory, part of the Global Control Union Laboratory Network and the 28th worldwide. Designed to support quality, safety, and sustainability, the laboratory delivers advanced analytical and microbiological testing across food, water, environmental, and agricultural sectors. Each section is built to meet international standards, supported by robust processes and disciplined quality systems. From chemical and pesticide residue analysis to environmental and EHS testing, precision and consistency guide every result. Cutting-edge instrumentation and modern infrastructure strengthen confidence in testing that supports regulatory compliance and responsible trade. As the first PCR-based food testing laboratory in the country, this facility marks a significant step forward in scientific capability. Backed by global expertise and local knowledge, it is set to advance industrial laboratory analysis in Sri Lanka. Behind every test is a dedicated team working with integrity and purpose. This is where science, technology, and people come together. Control Union Laboratory Sri Lanka, a lab with the right chemistry.
Hey, I'm fine. Good to see you.
Seems you enjoy.
I love food.
Tell me something about safety and food safety certification, perhaps?
Why not? Please join me.
Thank you.